Women have been testing men since the dawn of time. It's a dance as old as human nature itself. But when it comes to Sigma males, these traditional tests don't quite land the way they do with other men. Sigma males operate differently. They have an uncanny ability to read between the lines, pick up on hidden motives, and spot behavioral games long before those games ever get a chance to unfold. What works on most men simply doesn't work on the Sigma, and that's exactly what makes him both intriguing and challenging. That doesn't mean Sigma males are immune to being tested. They're human, with feelings, instincts, and moments of vulnerability, just like anyone else. But where other men might overreact, try too hard to prove themselves, or get thrown off balance, the Sigma male chooses a very different path. He doesn't play into the test, he analyzes it. He doesn't rush to justify or impress, he quietly observes, considers, and often turns the test back around in a way that leaves the other person guessing. This approach doesn't guarantee that a Sigma male will always get it right, but it means he operates with a level of calculated calm that can be both captivating and disarming. To some, this makes him an enigma. To others, it makes him a force to be reckoned with. Here are 12 ways women secretly test Sigma males, and how he handles them like no one else can. Number 1, she creates artificial urgency to test his priorities. Have you ever noticed how some people try to manufacture urgency out of nowhere? It's as if a deadline suddenly appears for no reason, forcing a quick, emotional decision. Maybe it's a girlfriend who suddenly says, "We have to move in together now or this won't work," or a woman who insists that you define the relationship immediately, as if an arbitrary timeline determines its worth. This is a classic test many women use, often subconsciously, to gauge a man's priorities, to see if he can be pushed, pressed, or molded when emotions run high. Most men, fearing the loss of the relationship or trying desperately to prove their commitment, crumble under this pressure. They agree hastily, make promises, or leap into life-altering decisions long before they've thought through the long-term consequences. But Sigma males? They recognize the shift in energy. They notice when urgency doesn't align with reality, when someone is trying to create a crisis where none truly exists. To a Sigma, this feels like an alarm bell, and instead of rushing to extinguish it, he pauses, evaluates, and questions the premise. He might calmly respond with, "That's a big decision, I'll need some time to think about it properly," or, "Why the rush?" This measured approach doesn't come from disinterest or avoidance. It's rooted in a deeper understanding. A decision made out of desperation is almost always one you'll regret later. And that's what separates the Sigma from the rest. He doesn't reject urgency because he doesn't care. He does it because he respects the weight of serious choices. The paradox is that this often earns him more respect in the end, even if it frustrates the person testing him, because it shows he operates by a higher standard, one that can't be dictated by artificial pressure. Number 2, she tests his boundaries by pushing for instant intimacy. One of the subtler ways some women test a Sigma male is by trying to fast-track intimacy, emotional or physical, far earlier than he feels comfortable. This can be a way to gauge how easily he compromises his boundaries, whether he operates from a place of desperation, or if he can stand firm in knowing what he truly wants. Most men, when faced with this test, feel flattered and rush in blindly, fearing that saying no might ruin their chance. They mistake urgency for genuine connection and end up entangled in dynamics that don't align with their deeper needs or values. Sigma males approach this differently. They recognize that boundaries are a reflection of self-respect. They don't reject intimacy as a concept, but they do require it to evolve naturally, rooted in trust, mutual understanding, and emotional depth. They aren't impressed by being tested in this way, nor do they feel the pressure to prove their worth by yielding to it. Instead, a Sigma male will slow things down, openly communicating the need for mutual respect and alignment. This measured, confident stance often surprises the woman, and reshapes the dynamic entirely. What was intended as a test suddenly becomes a lesson for both, that true intimacy is built intentionally, not forced by circumstance. In this way, the Sigma male demonstrates that his boundaries aren't walls meant to isolate, but lines drawn to protect the quality of connections he chooses to cultivate. It's this level of discernment that separates him from the rest and often leaves a lasting impression. Number 3, she tests his leadership by refusing to make decisions. This is one of the oldest and simplest, yet most effective, ways a woman can test a man's strength of character. It's the classic dance of "you decide," designed to force a man to prove his decisiveness, leadership, and sensitivity all at once. She'll say, "I don't know where I want to go tonight," or, "You pick, I'll be happy with whatever you decide," only to critique the choice later if it doesn't match some unspoken desire. Most men fall into this trap immediately. They either freeze, afraid to pick the wrong option, or they try desperately to read her mind, second-guessing every possibility until they're exhausted. In doing so, they hand over their power, making the interaction more about pleasing her than making a confident decision. The Sigma male, however, operates on an entirely different wavelength. He recognizes the test for what it is, a setup disguised as indecision, and refuses to play by its rules. Instead, he takes a moment to assess the situation clearly. If she genuinely doesn't have a preference, he'll make a decision rooted in his own standards and invite her to join in. But if she's using the ambiguity as a tool to later shift the blame, he shines a light on it calmly and openly. He might say, "If you have somewhere in mind, tell me, and we can make this a joint decision," or, "I'm happy to pick, but only if we both agree it's the right call." This approach disarms the test. It creates accountability. It transforms the dynamic from one-sided judgment to mutual collaboration. For the Sigma male, this isn't about ego or dominance, it's about clarity and integrity. It signals that he won't carry the burden of making choices for someone who refuses to voice their needs. In the end, this approach often forces a shift in the woman herself. She's either inspired to speak openly about what she wants, or she realizes that this is a man who won't accept being set up for failure. And that's the Sigma male in a nutshell, a man who doesn't just rise to the test, but reshapes it entirely, making it about mutual respect, directness, and emotional honesty. Number 4, she tests his independence by becoming overly clingy. Some women suddenly shift from being balanced and open to wanting every second of a man's attention. They move from normal to clingy almost overnight, expecting texts every 5 minutes, calling repeatedly when he doesn't reply instantly, or behaving as if any moment he spends on himself is a betrayal. They guilt-trip him for focusing on work or passions, making him feel selfish for prioritizing anything other than her. Most men have one of two knee-jerk reactions. Some cancel meetings, skip the gym, or give up friends and passions altogether just to prove their loyalty, only to lose their sense of self in the process. Others run for the hills, cutting her off completely, seeing her behavior as a threat to their autonomy. Sigma males, however, operate differently. They have a unique ability to spot when neediness is genuine vulnerability and when it's an exaggerated test. They don't lash out or break down, instead, they maintain their balance. They're unshakable in their routine because they understand this truth: you can't build a strong us by destroying the you and me first. A Sigma male won't be guilted into reshaping his life for the sake of someone else's insecurities. But this doesn't mean he doesn't care. In fact, when a Sigma male finds the right woman, one who embraces trust, reciprocity, and emotional intelligence, he chooses to make her a priority. Not because she demanded it, but because he genuinely values her presence and contribution to his life. Smart women understand this about Sigma males. They realize that a strong bond doesn't require suffocation. True intimacy is built when both partners nurture their individuality while choosing to come together, not because one needs to dominate the other, but because both recognize that space and trust deepen the connection. The Sigma male knows this, and when a woman embraces it too, she becomes more than just a partner. She becomes an ally. Number 5, she pretends to be busy to see if he will chase. Have you ever noticed how quickly the dynamics can shift after a great date? Suddenly, she's too busy for the next one. The woman who responded instantly before now replies after hours, or days. The texts grow shorter. The warmth of your conversations is replaced with calculated silence. This is the classic unavailability test, an attempt to measure how badly you'll pursue her when she creates distance. Most men panic when this shift occurs. They second-guess themselves, overwhelm her with long messages, or desperately try to win her back. They drop plans, reshuffle schedules, and do everything in their power to regain her attention. Ironically, this only confirms to her that she has the upper hand and that he's more invested than she is. But the Sigma male? He doesn't operate in this space. He doesn't chase shadows, nor does he compete with a woman's self-orchestrated mystery. Instead, he steps back, remains composed, and focuses on his own priorities. He operates from a simple truth: if a person genuinely values you, their time and attention will match their words. A Sigma male doesn't make assumptions when someone goes quiet, nor does he attach desperation to silence. He simply allows things to play out. If she's genuinely busy, he respects that, and welcomes reconnecting when she's available. If she's playing games, he lets the silence linger until she realizes that manipulating attention doesn't move a Sigma, it only repels him. More often than not, this approach reshapes the dynamic. The woman who tried to test him realizes she can't outplay a man rooted in self-respect. Either she drops the act and embraces sincerity, or she removes herself from the picture altogether, and in both scenarios, the Sigma male wins. Not because he's playing to win, but because he knows that in life, silence and strength are far more attractive than desperation and noise. Number 6, she tries to make him jealous. Some women lean on a classic but often misguided tactic: they try to make the man jealous. This can range from dropping mentions of male friends and colleagues, to telling stories about attention from others, or posting flirtatious photos online. The underlying message is calculated: look at how many options I have. Will you compete? Will you fight for my attention? Most men stumble right into the trap. Insecure ones will react by pressing harder, suddenly checking up on her more, trying to claim their territory, or making bold declarations that expose their vulnerability. Others might overreact, behaving like cavemen, trying to dominate or control the situation to mask the sting of jealousy. In both instances, the woman confirms that she has pushed the right emotional buttons, gaining the upper hand. But a Sigma male doesn't play by those rules. He doesn't rise to the bait because he doesn't operate from a place of lack or desperation. Instead of responding with aggression or desperation, he becomes quiet, observant, and composed. Not because he doesn't care, but because he knows one simple truth: a strong person doesn't have to prove their worth when tested by provocation. If she's genuinely trying to manipulate him by invoking jealousy, the Sigma male sees it clearly. He doesn't internalize it as a threat, because he knows that any bond worth having doesn't require games or one-upmanship to sustain itself. In that moment, he doesn't sink to that level. He steps back, maintains his boundaries, and allows silence to do its work. This approach is disarming. To the woman expecting an emotional scene or a desperate plea, the Sigma male's calm, confident reaction is a mirror that reflects the immaturity of the tactic. It shows her that real strength doesn't rise to every poke or prod, and that genuine connection can't be built upon such shallow dynamics. Ironically, this reaction often frustrates the person employing the test, because it removes their sense of control. Yet it also intrigues them, making them recognize that this man operates from a higher, more grounded state of being, one that doesn't hinge on external validation. A Sigma male knows this deeply: true strength doesn't have to prove itself, and true loyalty doesn't have to be tested. In a world where many men try too hard to compete for affection, the Sigma male stands apart. Not because he doesn't care, but because he knows that a relationship built on mutual respect doesn't need jealousy as its foundation. It needs trust, integrity, and a quiet, unshakable sense of worth, the very qualities that make him irreplaceable. Number 7, she pushes boundaries to see if he will compromise his standards. One of the most common ways women test a Sigma male is by subtly or overtly challenging his boundaries. This can range from pressuring him to accept behavior he doesn't agree with, like making light of a core value, bending an agreement, or acting in a way that contradicts his principles, to making demands meant to test how far he'll stretch for her comfort. Most men cave when this test arrives. They fear that saying no will lead to rejection, so they reluctantly shift their boundaries, hoping that acquiescing will win favor. In doing so, they send a quiet but unmistakable signal that their boundaries aren't rooted in conviction, and that their standards can be molded to fit another person's whims. Sigma males, however, stand firm. To them, boundaries aren't walls meant to isolate themselves from the world, they're sacred lines that protect their integrity. When a woman tests these lines, she quickly realizes that a Sigma won't abandon the principles he lives by. If she pushes too hard, he doesn't lash out, nor does he justify or beg for understanding. Instead, he calmly and clearly reaffirms where he stands, making it evident that mutual respect is the foundation of any interaction. To the right woman, this steadfastness is captivating, proof that she's dealing with a man who knows himself and doesn't lose that center when tested. To the wrong one, it's a reminder that control and manipulation have no place in this bond. Either way, the Sigma male emerges from the test intact, because a man aligned with his core values is a man who can't be molded by external pressure. Number 8, she uses mixed signals to gauge his emotional stability. Another common test is the dance of mixed signals. One day she's affectionate and fully present, the next she's cold and detached. The point of this behavior is to measure how a man will respond when thrown off balance. Will he spiral into desperation? Will he overcorrect to win back attention? Will he lose his focus and center? Most men interpret this behavior as an urgent alarm, responding with overinvestment, clinginess, or aggression. They try harder, send longer messages, or make overt gestures to reclaim the warmth that was briefly withdrawn. What they don't realize is that this is precisely the reaction she was hoping for, evidence that she can control the emotional climate of the relationship. A Sigma male, by contrast, operates from a place of internal stability. He doesn't rise and fall with every shift in tone or emotion. When faced with mixed signals, he doesn't internalize them as rejection or loss of worth. Instead, he steps back, gives space, and observes. He doesn't chase or beg for clarity, because he knows that a truly aligned person doesn't operate from a place of confusion or emotional manipulation. Ironically, this approach often exposes the test for what it is. The person employing it finds herself disarmed, unable to draw the sigma into a cycle of emotional turbulence. What she sees instead is a man rooted deeply in himself, an individual who can navigate moments of ambiguity with grace and discernment. This quiet resilience is precisely what separates sigma males from the rest. They understand that a strong bond doesn't arise from control or confusion, but from mutual understanding and sincerity. To the right woman, this steadfastness doesn't just pass the test, it redefines the standard. Number 9, she challenges his calmness to see if he will lose composure. Some women intentionally try to disrupt a sigma male's tranquility, using sharp remarks, sudden mood shifts, or unexpected provocations, to see if he will crack under pressure. This is a classic emotional resilience test, designed to assess if the man can stay composed when tensions rise. Most men respond reactively. They raise their voice, match aggression with aggression, or desperately try to justify themselves, seeking to regain control of the situation. The woman making the test doesn't necessarily want an outburst, but she is looking for a sign, any sign, that the man can be thrown off balance. Sigma males, by contrast, understand that emotional stability is one of their greatest strengths. When tested, they don't bite the hook. They listen, observe, and measure the dynamics quietly before responding. Sometimes, their reply is a calm statement that disarms the tension completely. Other times, it's a simple decision to walk away from a situation that doesn't align with their values. This reaction can be both captivating and intimidating. The woman sees a man who doesn't lose himself when the waters get rough, someone grounded enough to stand firm when tested. The lesson for her? True strength is quiet, and a sigma male doesn't raise his voice to prove it. Number 10, she plays hard to get to gauge his need for validation. Another common test is when a woman deliberately acts distant or unavailable to measure how badly a man needs her attention. It's the classic dance of playing hard to get, responding slowly to texts, canceling plans, or sending mixed signals. Most men try harder when this test appears. They send longer texts, make more calls, or plan bigger gestures to win her attention. But in doing so, they reveal how reliant their sense of worth is on external affirmation. Sigma males approach this test with a remarkably different mindset. They recognize the behavior for what it is, a test meant to stir the ego. Rather than chasing after attention, they stay aligned with their own passions, priorities, and responsibilities. They don't collapse their world to fit into hers. If she genuinely values the sigma male, she'll step out from behind the facade, respect his boundaries, and rise to the level of sincerity he operates from. If she doesn't, he doesn't lose sleep over it. The sigma knows that the right connections aren't about games or tactics, but about mutual understanding and trust, things that can only arise when both people are fully present and authentic. Number 11, she tests his emotional stability by creating drama. Some women intentionally create moments of tension, a sudden disagreement, a cryptic text, or an unexpected scene, to measure how a man will react when emotions run high. Will he explode with anger? Will he collapse into desperation? Will he try too hard to fix things that weren't broken to begin with? This is a test of emotional stability. Most men, when faced with this tactic, either get swept up in the storm, responding with aggression, confusion, or desperation, or try too hard to win her back by making concessions. But sigma males approach the situation differently. They observe first. They assess whether the behavior is rooted in genuine feelings or a calculated test. They don't match emotional chaos with more chaos. Instead, a sigma male maintains composure. He doesn't raise his voice, resort to aggression, or grovel for peace. He gives space for reflection, making it clear through calm demeanor and measured words that emotional stability is a core requirement for any relationship he chooses to maintain. This response often leaves a profound impact, one that separates him from the rest of the pack. Number 12, she tests his willpower by introducing mixed signals. Another common test occurs when a woman alternates between warmth and coldness, one moment openly affectionate, the next distant or detached. The goal? To test how reliant a man is on her attention and how he handles the uncertainty that comes with inconsistently offered affection. Most men, when subjected to this tactic, try harder to win her over. They send more messages, tolerate unclear behavior, and justify the emotional turbulence as a sign of passion or chemistry. The sigma male, however, operates by a different set of rules. He recognizes that relationships must be built upon mutual respect and emotional clarity, not on a foundation of confusion and reward withdrawal dynamics. Rather than chasing or clinging, the sigma male steps back and reevaluates. He doesn't overreact or demand an explanation, nor does he succumb to the psychological game. Instead, he lets silence and space do the talking. This measured approach reminds both parties that a true connection doesn't require manipulation to flourish. It also allows the Sigma male to reaffirm one of his core principles: he is available for sincerity, but never for ambiguity. Final thoughts. The ways women test men aren't new, they've been a part of the dance between the sexes for generations. But what separates the Sigma male is how he chooses to respond. He doesn't rise to the bait, he doesn't collapse under pressure, and he doesn't compromise his core values just to win temporary affection. Instead, he observes. He evaluates. He acts from a place of purpose, integrity, and emotional self-control. Sigma males understand that trust, respect, and mutual alignment form the foundation of any strong bond. They recognize that true strength doesn't come from reacting to every test, but from knowing when to walk away from dynamics that don't serve their higher path. It's not about winning the game, it's about rising above it altogether. In the end, a Sigma male doesn't seek to dominate or control. He doesn't crave validation from the test or the tester. What he chooses to cultivate is a space where honesty, clarity, and mutual growth can flourish, a space where both people can evolve together. And that, more than anything, is what sets him apart from the rest. In a world that plays games, the Sigma male chooses to stand firmly in the truth. In a world that demands reaction, he chooses the strength of measured silence. In a world that often forgets itself, he chooses to remember who he is. That is his edge. That is his legacy. And that is why the Sigma male is the furthest thing from normal, and exactly as he is meant to be. Thank you for watching.